At the end of the last episode, we left a name hanging in the dark. Najran, a city in the highlands of Yemen. A city that would soon burn. But before it burned, it believed. To understand what happened there, and why it still echoes through scripture today, in both the Quran and Christian memory, we have to go back further than the fire. We have to start with a boy, a monk, and a king who feared them both. Long before Dhu Nuwas ever ruled, Najran was already a city with its own faith, and its own story of how that faith arrived. According to hadith preserved by Imam Muslim, a boy was sent by a king to study under an old sorcerer. On his way, the boy began stopping to listen to a monk who lived along the road. The monk taught him of a different power than magic, a single God. The boy came to believe, quietly at first. Then, according to the account, he began healing the sick, not through sorcery, but through prayer, giving credit to God alone. When word reached the king, the boy would not recant, neither would the monk who taught him. Both men died for that refusal, sawn in half according to the account, rather than deny what they believed. But the boy's final act, before his own death, converted the city that watched him die. According to this tradition, this is how Najran became Christian, not through Aksum, not through Byzantium. Through one boy who would not lie about what he believed, even to save his own life. This detail matters. When Aksum enters this story later, it does not arrive to plant a faith that was not there. It arrives to defend a faith that already existed on its own terms in Arabia. Generations later, a new king rose in Himyar. Yusuf Asar Yathar, better known to history as Dhu Nuwas. He had converted to Judaism, and his reign became entangled in something larger than personal faith. Himyar sat between two expanding Christian powers, Aksum across the Red Sea, Byzantium further north. Both had reasons to want influence in Arabia. Dhu Nuwas, scholars argue, saw a Jewish Himyar as a counterweight to that pressure. Not purely a religious choice, a political one too. Najran's Christians would not convert. According to the account, Dhu Nuwas ordered ditches dug at the entrances to the roads. Fires were lit inside them. Those who renounced their faith were spared. Those who did not were given a choice, the fire or the sword. They chose to keep their faith. Here we have to be honest about something difficult. The sources do not agree on how many died. Some accounts speak of a few hundred, others describe tens of thousands. One classical Islamic source, transmitted through Ibn Ishaq, gives a specific number: 20,000 killed in a single morning. We will not pretend to know the true figure. What we can say is this: every source, regardless of the number, agrees on what happened. A Christian community was given a choice between fire and betrayal and chose the fire. According to the account, only one man escaped the ditches. Dhu Thalaban. He rode north toward Byzantine territory, toward Caesar himself. He carried word of what had happened in Najran to the one power capable of answering it. This is worth pausing on. An empire did not simply hear about Najran through official channels or diplomatic reports. It heard about it from a single survivor, who outran an army to make sure the story would not die with everyone else. What happened next looks, on the surface, like Christian solidarity, united faith answering an atrocity. It was more complicated than that. 70 years earlier, the Council of Chalcedon had split the Christian world over a difficult question: the nature of Christ, one united nature, or two, joined in a single person. Byzantium held one position, Aksum held the other, so did Najran itself. They were not the same church. They did not share communion. On paper, they were rivals in an unresolved theological war. And yet, when word of Najran reached them, that division did not stop them from acting together. The Byzantine Emperor Justinian sent an envoy, Julianus, to the courts of both Aksum and Himyar, urging a unified response. King Caleb of Aksum answered. Whatever their disagreements on the nature of Christ, both sides agreed on something more immediate. What had happened at Najran could not stand. This is the real story, and it is a better one than simple unity. Two powers, doctrinally divided, chose a shared enemy over their own disagreement. Not because the disagreement stopped mattering, because something else mattered more in that moment. Caleb's fleet crossed the Gate of Tears. Himyar's army could not hold. And here the sources split again, and we will not choose between them. One account, the Book of the Himyarites, written close to these events, says Dhu Nuwas was beheaded by an Aksumite soldier, in a scene its author deliberately compares to David and Goliath. A different tradition, preserved through Ibn Ishaq's account of the prophet's life, says Dhu Nuwas tried to flee and drowned in the sea. Beheaded or drowned, both accounts agree on one thing. However it happened, Dhu Nuwas's reign ended with the invasion, and Himyar's Jewish kingdom ended with him. Here, the sources disagree in a way that matters for what comes next. One tradition holds that Caleb's invasion force was led from the very beginning by two commanders together, Ariat and a man named Abraha. A different tradition, drawn from Byzantine and later historical sources, tells it differently. Caleb appointed a local Himyarite convert, Samiafa Ashwa, to rule in his name and returned home, leaving a garrison behind. In this version, Abraha was not a co-commander from the start. He was one of the soldiers left in that garrison, men who had conquered a rich, fertile land and did not want to leave it. Years later, in this account, Abraha turned against the very king Caleb had appointed. Two very different stories, one where Abraha's rise was immediate, one where it was a slow betrayal from within. What both traditions agree on is where this leads. Abraha would not remain anyone's soldier and not anyone's governor. He was about to become a king in his own right, and his ambitions would eventually turn north toward a city called Makkah. That is where we go next. Centuries after these events, a verse was revealed. Surah Al-Buruj, the Constellations. It speaks of a people, cursed were the makers of the ditch, of fire fed with fuel, of believers who were shown no fault except that they believed in God. Muhammad ibn Ishaq, author of the earliest surviving biography of the Prophet, recorded the connection directly. He named Dhu Nuwas, he named his army, and he stated plainly that it was about them this verse was revealed. This is preserved for us through Ibn Kathir, one of the great scholars of Quranic commentary, who carried Ibn Ishaq's account forward into his own tafsir, unchanged. A massacre in a highland city became scripture, a permanent refusal to let the memory of Najran's dead be forgotten. Aksum crossed the sea once to answer what happened here. It would not be the last time this land shaped what came after it. Because the man left ruling in its aftermath was about to build something extraordinary and march it toward the one city that would change everything. In the next episode, Abraha the Elephant and the Road to Islam.